I don't really call anywhere home. So I'm not necessarily
That's so
super
fucking emo.
God damn it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry about that IU game, man.
Yeah, that was super disappointing. We usually record Friday nights, and I asked if we could do it Saturday morning so I could watch that game, and it was not fun. It was not a fun watch. They were just hitting shots they don't typically shoot, or hit, rather. But, yeah, it was, I got a lot more out of this IU season than I thought I would, so.
Yeah, I don't know that much about college basketball, but I didn't think they were going to have a very good season, and they surpassed what I thought they were going to do, so that's good. I'm a Georgia Tech fan, but I always try to root for IU just for you, even though I didn't have them winning that game on my bracket, but because I'm a Georgia Tech fan, like I said, but I also root for the ACC in the tournament. So I had North Carolina going pretty far. My bracket doesn't matter at this point anyways, because I had Michigan State winning it all. So it doesn't really matter. But I think at this point, I'm still okay because I think everybody had Michigan State going far. So it kind of fucked everybody.
Yeah.
So, but.
Yeah, what kills me, and not that any of our listeners care about college basketball, is that if they, that was the one big game they had to get past. They would be playing Notre Dame tomorrow if they would have won, and they beat Notre Dame earlier this year.
Yeah, Georgia Tech beat Notre Dame.
Yeah. I feel like IU could have at least made the Final Four had they got past that game, and then for it to not even really be close was really disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. I just saw the final score. I went and saw Batman v Superman for the second time while that game was going on. And it was actually kind of annoying because the people that were sitting pretty close to me didn't shut off the notifications. I guess they have ESPN or whatever. And so I kept hearing it go off. And I was like, oh, that can't be good.
Yeah, I threw in the towel probably with about 5 minutes left in the second half. And I told my wife, I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to go see Batman again.
Yeah.
I need to see it again before we record anyway. So I went to the late showing after that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we start off each episode by just kind of checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week, Tyler?
I have kind of a bit of a lame what I'm into. It's two shows that I'm going to group together, and they're two shows that I've been consistently disappointed by recently. So, New Girl and Modern Family. These are two comedies that are
I agree with you on one of them.
that are well into they have a tenure. I don't know what season they're on specifically, but New Girl's probably 4 or 5, and Modern Family is probably 6 or 7 at this point. And both are shows that I've watched since their inception, and I've always found them somewhat funny. Modern Family more so than New Girl, but I've obviously stuck with them for quite a few years, so I do find enjoyment in these shows. But these 2 seasons of these 2 separate shows have been really bad. I don't know. Modern Family got a lot of acclaim in its first few years, and it was all very well deserved, but it's become really stale, and the same goes for New Girl. New Girl has become this weird show where everybody's just kind of dumb and yells at each other, and no real plot develops, which kind of, as I'm saying that, explains It's Always Sunny in a way. Yeah. But It's Always Sunny is actually funny, and this is not funny, and this is not, the characters have become something different that's really weird. I think that both of these shows are definitely in a rut, and I can't imagine how they're going to make them better. It's probably time to throw in the towel, honestly. They've probably done as much with the characters and the premise as they can, especially New Girl. How many seasons can you make of a show where a girl goes and lives with 3 guys? Yeah. Usually somebody has to get married or have a baby or whatever, and there is a wedding coming in this season, but it's not going to fix anything. It's not going to change anything.
They're still going to live in the loft. I cannot, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. We couldn't, wrap our heads around, why would they
Yeah.
stay. Like Schmidt has that other loft, and we were like,
Yeah.
okay, well, when they're talking about moving into the loft, I was like, well, they got to be talking about
I
that
forgot
other
he
one.
even has that other loft. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck's the point of that? And Modern Family's in the same situation. They've told most of the stories that they can. They're kind of in a rut. The kids are all older. Jay's probably going to die soon.
Yeah.
No, that's a joke. I hope he doesn't. Ed Neal doesn't die, but, it's not in as bad of a place as New Girl is, but I don't know. Both shows kind of need to do something ballsy to reignite it. And I don't know what that is. And I don't know that they can. It's probably best to just kind of start wrapping it up in the next year or two. But as long as they keep making money with advertising and whatnot, I'm sure that won't be the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you with New Girl. I agree with you somewhat with Modern Family, but considering Modern Family's been on longer, I kind of excuse it a little bit more. New Girl is it's really disappointing. Like I kind of gave up on it last season, and for sure this season. Like I'm pretty much done. If I watch it, I watch it. If not, my wife still loves it and she still watches it.
What's funny with New Girl is this season was weird. Like, it didn't start till January, and Jess hasn't really been in it too much because she got jury duty. But realistically, Zooey Deschanel had a baby.
Yeah.
And they're like, so how do we keep this interesting? Oh, let's bring in Megan Fox.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And
no,
it's become this weird show, man.
Yeah. It's kind of disappointing because my wife usually watches something on her iPad when she cooks. And she's been rewatching New Girl, and the first couple of seasons are really funny.
Yeah, they are.
But you start off with this kind of weird concept, and it's like there's only so much you can do with it, and that's why I always think that shows that kind of start off with this kind of unique concept, not that New Girl's all that unique, but they kind of start off with this weird or unique concept. It's like at a certain point you have to realize that if you're in for the long haul, what are you going to do at a certain, when you hit 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, what are you going to do? And I think that's what New Girl's starting to find out, is that there's not a whole lot of stories they can tell now.
I think they pulled the trigger with her and Nick way too early as well. Like that's
I don't know. I think you tease that for so long, you kind of have to.
Yeah. And then poor Winston. I mean, he's never had anything to do.
Oh, I love Winston. I still love that character.
I love Winston, but like the last episode, each episode is like, there's like a main plot point, and then whatever character is not involved with that are off doing something
B story,
like really. But their B story is not like a good friend's B story.
Yeah,
it's like a really bad B story. So like the last episode, Nick and Winston are arguing about whose job is harder.
Yeah.
So like Winston deals with some stuff at the bar, and then Nick does a police ride along, and it might sound like it could be a possibly like actually kind of like a funny setup, especially with Nick being on a police ride along, but it's not. It's really lame, and it's really dumb.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Enough bitching about those two shows. What are you into?
I'm actually going to talk about 2 shows as well. One that I liked, one that I don't really like. I'm going to start with the one that I didn't like, Flaked.
Oh yeah.
It's Will Arnett Netflix project that got released a few weeks ago. It stars Will Arnett, like I said. He stars as Chip, who is a recovering alcoholic who tries to give people advice around him, even though that his life is kind of falling apart. It's a dark comedy similar to what we talked about with Love. You kind of almost laughing at them, more than laughing with them. They kind of have the similar themes. They're 30-minute episodes, and I think there's 8 or 10. I can't remember how many there are. Well, I only got through 3 of them.
You got farther than I did, man.
Oh, really? You've watched it?
I watched the premiere. I got the pilot.
And those 3 episodes, I did not laugh one time. And so an hour and a half, you can't make me laugh one time. Like I smiled a couple times, but nothing. I didn't even chuckle or anything. Like I understand that what this show's going for. It's kind of a darker comedy. It talks about some darker issues, but at the same time, I'm supposed to at least enjoy watching it. And I don't enjoy watching this show. And there's a thing that they do, and they only do it a few times, but like there's particular lines, and then they'll say them, and then they'll kind of hesitate a little bit. And I thought to myself, I was like, are they waiting like until we stop laughing? Because I bet that they think that line's gonna hit, and it was just stupid. I found myself rolling my eyes more than I did laughing. Well, that makes sense because I didn't laugh at all. But it's kind of a shame because I love Will Arnett. I love him on Arrested Development, and Mitchell Hurwitz is actually a producer on this show, and Will Arnett wrote and created it alongside another gentleman that I can't remember his name off the top of my head. So it just, I've seen this kind of man-child character done before plenty of times. He does it, Will Arnett does it better in Arrested Development. And it's just, I don't know. If you're going to do a character that I've seen before, that we as viewers have seen before, you just have to make it better than all those other shows. And this is mediocre at best.
Yeah, like I said, I watched the pilot or the first episode, whatever you want to call it, whenever it's on Netflix, and no laughter at all. It just made me feel sad inside. I don't know. It wasn't even like a well done dark comedy, which I didn't even know was a dark comedy. I don't know what I was expecting. I just imagine, I think Will Arnett's a really talented guy. They gave him a Netflix show. They did the same with Aziz.
Yeah.
And, so I'm like, I'm sure that he had a lot of creative control. It's probably really great, and it is not.
Yeah.
So I will not be revisiting this show, and you're stopping after 3 episodes just kind of confirms that for me.
For sure.
I appreciate that.
So the second show that I want to talk about, the show that I liked, is The People versus O.J. Simpson. Are you watching this, Tyler?
No, I really want to, though. I heard a lot of great things.
It is better than it has any right to be. Like, when I heard that they were going to do this, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, because they're just kind of jumping on that true crime bandwagon that kind of started with Serial and kind of continue with Making a Murderer. And then they started casting, and Cuba Gooding Jr. and John Travolta and David Schwimmer, like every casting announcement that they made, I was like, oh man, this is going to be like a Lifetime TV movie sort of thing. And it's really great. Like like I said, it's better than it has any right to be. Everybody's really great in it. I'm not a John Travolta fan, and he's really great in it. Cuba Gooding Jr. is the best he's been probably since Jerry Maguire. Even Ross is good in this. I mean, great is kind of pushing it, or even good is kind of pushing it with it. He's serviceable in this. Like, he's surprisingly serviceable in this. And this story is kind of a perfect storm for me, because like many people, I'm kind of enjoying those true crime dramas. I talked about, I was just on a bonus episode of the Obsessive Viewer, and they always do potpourri, kind of like what we're doing with what we're into. And I talked about Fantastic Lies, which is a true crime documentary about the Duke lacrosse players.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that as well. So I'm kind of getting into that genre. Plus, this story is weird in the sense that I was alive. It happened in 94. So I was alive, but I was only 7 years old. So I vaguely remember it. So I do have a little bit of nostalgia for it, which is kind of a weird word to describe this case, but it's something that I vaguely remember, but I don't know that much about it. So it was it had a little bit of nostalgia, but also I'm learning things as the show goes on that I didn't know before because I was a little kid. And it kind of does a great job of showing you that he for sure did it. There's no doubt in my mind that he did it. He's the only one that could have done it. But it also shows you how he got off. Like, you understand the atmosphere of LA at the time, and just the circumstances surrounding it, and how his lawyers kind of manipulated the system and were able to get him off. So it makes sense. This last episode, and I can't remember what the episode title was, but this last episode kind of paused the show a little bit, because it was kind of building to the verdict, and it kind of paused it, and it gave you the jury's perspective of the whole trial and how they thought they were only going to be there for a couple of months, and then they kind of basically are in prison for 8-9 months, and it just the back and forth with them. And I guess this was a big deal during the trial. I guess the jury made a stand at a certain point in the trial, and it was a big deal. Again, I was only 7, so I didn't remember the details, but it's just a really fantastic show, better than it has any right to be.
Yeah, that's actually a case I don't know a ton about. Like, I know the controversy around it, I know the glove, I like the Bronco, like all the big things, but I don't know how the case actually went and how they actually got OJ off and all of that good stuff. So it's definitely a show I'd be interested in watching. It's going to be just a mini series, I'd assume, right?
Yeah, I think it's 10 episodes.
Yeah, like that's very doable. I'll definitely probably go back and watch this whenever it's done.
For sure. All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
So a few episodes ago, probably like this time last year, we did a nerd favorite that you actually came up with. It was like, what's your favorite ride at Disney World?
Yeah.
And mine has always been the Haunted Mansion. So not only is the Haunted Mansion kind of like this cool ride with cool effects and stuff.
And an awesome Eddie Murphy movie.
Not quite that, but it also has like this fandom around it. There's like all sorts of theories and like this cult following for this ride, and then they've like the fans have almost made up stories for it. Like the bride in the attic did this and this and this, and that's why she's there. And you know, if you look closely, there's a ring out in the cement outside of the Haunted Mansion, and just like little things like that. So whenever I heard they were making a Haunted Mansion comic book, I was really excited because there's so much fandom that goes into that ride and that experience that they could draw on that to make a really cool story, and they did not.
Yeah.
So like I said, a ton of mythology and fanfare behind this ride that they just didn't use. Is very, very poorly written. So it's basically just lines from the ride inserted into dialogue really poorly.
Okay.
Like it's kind of, there's like a couple cool moments where you're like, oh yeah, they say that in the ride, but it doesn't, when you think about it, it really doesn't make sense in the conversation that the characters are having. It's also weird. The main character is this kid who just lost his grandfather, and the Haunted Mansion basically brings him in to help them get rid of this pirate ghost. And if he helps get rid of this or stop the pirate ghost, he can speak to his grandfather again. It's really dumb. But this kid, like everything that in other comics would be like a thought bubble or like a box that the character is thinking, he says out loud. Like even when he's by himself, he is speaking out loud. It almost plays like the scene from Troll 2 where the kid's like, they're eating them and then they're going to eat me. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I kind of read it, because it's just, it doesn't make sense. So I'm very disappointed because I think there is a fun story to tell about this ride. And hopefully if Guillermo del Toro ever makes a movie like he had announced like 5 years ago, he can tell that story in a film, but who knows if that'll ever be made. But I don't know. There is a story to tell there. This comic is just not doing it.
Yeah, when you brought out Troll 2, I assumed that somebody got pissed on.
Not on screen. Or on page, rather. All right, man. What comic did you read?
I'm going to talk about Batman 50, which is kind of, it's nice that we get to talk about this comic when we review on the same episode that we review Batman v Superman. This comic is the end of Snyder and Capullo's super heavy story arc. They've been building towards this with Mr. Bloom for a while now. It's actually their second to last episode issue. They still have issue number 51 that they're going to be doing. And then I think Snyder has a couple more issues that he's going to do with somebody else. And then they're going to go back like 6 or 7 months later, and they're going to do a separate Batman story. So this is kind of a supersized issue. It's $5.99, so it's definitely a little bit more pricey than we're used to. But it makes sense because there's a lot of stuff that they had to clean up in this issue. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but Bruce Wayne is back as Batman. Like I said, I don't think that's too big of a spoiler because of what happened in number 49. So if you're reading this book, you probably already know that he's kind of working his way back to being Batman. Snyder and Capullo do use Batman's rogues gallery really well. They also create so many of their own characters, their new characters, and I really have loved Mr. Bloom. Joker is gone for at least for the time being, and it's kind of nice that he's kind of has a Joker-esque personality. Not that he's as great as Joker is, but he kind of has a similar personality, and so I kind of like that they've created this character to kind of fill that void. And I love the new Batman costume. So Batman number 50 was kind of exactly what I wanted it to be and exactly what they kind of needed it to be.
Yeah, I did read Batman 50 as well, obviously. And I agree with you quite a bit, especially on Mr. Bloom.
Yeah.
Like this issue gives us the most backstory about the character out of any issue, but there's still I'm not gonna be able to say this word. He's still anonymous.
Yeah.
Like you don't know if it's male. You don't
anonymity.
know if it's, Yeah, something, that's what I was trying to go
I
for.
struggled with it too.
You don't know if it's male or if it's female or who it is behind the mask. And that kind of makes it even more terrifying because it's like this big contorting creature. And obviously great to see Bruce Wayne back as Batman. I also like the costume. It's another Greg Capullo action figure they can make and I can spend $20 on.
Yeah.
But, I also like the Jim Gordon arc in this issue.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I thought for sure, I'm like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end up working out that way, but I'm definitely excited to see what they do with their issue 51 one shot.
Yeah.
Which is going to kind of be like their goodbye letter. I mean, they've done 50 issues with this character as a team, and it's just been great story after great story. So I'm really excited to see what they do with 51. And I think you and I are going to try to do a retrospective on their time on Batman, which I'm also really looking forward to whenever that comes out.
What'd you feel about the epilogue? It was kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it was. And there, I won't say that this comic was perfect. Like the end of 49, when Bruce Wayne kind of gets his memory back and decides to be Batman again, Alfred is in tears and he's just so upset that this happened for Bruce and he thought that Bruce was finally going to be happy. And then at the beginning of 50, Alfred's like, it's nice to have you back, sir. And shit like that. So that crossover there didn't make sense. The epilogue was kind of weird. I don't know how on board I am with, Duke possibly becoming a new Robin.
Yeah.
Because Damian Wayne is still out there. So I don't know. There's a couple things that I was kind of iffy on, but for the most part, it was a really satisfying end to the super heavy story. Yeah,
you mentioned that there's a couple of things here and there, and especially with Duke, possibly they kind of tease that he might be becoming the new Robin. Normally, with a big change like that, I would always think, well, it's Snyder. He'll do something great. Well, he's not going to be the one tackling it. So it's a little bit unnerving, but yeah, I mean, this book is great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with their new Batman story.
Yeah.
That they're going to be doing it here later this year. I've heard that it's more of a villain story, which I'm looking forward to. Like I said, they use Batman's rogues gallery so well, and they kind of create their own characters. I don't know if they'll be creating their own characters in this new book that they'll be doing, but I'm excited to see what they're going to do.
I mean, that's the one thing is they've made Mr. Bloom and they made the Court of Owls, and that was awesome. They did an annual with Mr. Freeze that was amazing. But then they did 2 Joker storylines and a Riddler storyline. I would have liked to have seen them, like all of the Rogues Gallery makes an appearance at one time or another, but they're always just like side characters and side villains, and they don't feel that important. So I would have liked to have seen them on their time with Batman done like a big Penguin story or a big Two-Face story or something along those lines, and they just never did. But there's only so much you can do in 50 issues whenever you're telling these long 10-issue stories. So
for sure.
All right, man, you ready to move on to nerd news?
Yep.
All right. So every week we talk about the big nerd news stories that came up since the last time we spoke. So this week we have a few. The first is that they released a trailer for Lego Batman, which is going to be fucking hilarious, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was really charming. Not a lot happens in the trailer, but it kind of gives you what the feel of this movie is going to be. And it's basically the Lego Batman picked up and dropped into Gotham from the Lego movie, which I love. I love his cockiness, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because you had said you had texted me about the new Batman Lego trailer, and I looked at, I was like, oh man, I haven't seen that yet. And so I looked it up. I just Googled it and I clicked on the first thing that came up, and I watched the whole thing and it looked really shitty. And I was like, why is everybody excited about this? And I realized I had looked at like a Lego Batman like video game trailer or something from like 3 years ago, and it looked really shitty. But anyways, then I finally found the actual trailer and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. It has the same humor. Like you said, it just basically takes that same character and drops him into Gotham. And I love the microwave scene. That was so funny. I mean, that's the exact type of humor that you get from the Lego movie. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I forgot the whole thing with him punching in the tongue. I'm like, that's such a random thing to put in the movie. And then I like it when he's eating his lobster and he's like, I deserve this.
Yeah, it's really funny. But like I said before, I don't know if we're the perfect judges of trailers anymore. Like I don't know. After that Ghostbusters fiasco.
We should probably just retire talking about trailers.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. The next one we'll talk about real quick was announced yesterday. Fred Armisen is going to be the voice of Krang in TMNT, Out of the Shadows. I mean, that's not a huge story. He does have kind of a unique voice. He's more soft-spoken than I would expect Krang to be, but I've never heard him do voice work, so I'm sure he'll pull something out that'll be pretty funny. And
I mean, he obviously he's known for being on SNL and Portlandia, and he does all these different characters, so he obviously can contort his voice in a way that he's gonna sound perfect. I'm gonna love it. I'm a pretty big fan of his. I liked the fact that he did the Seth Meyers show for a while, and it's kind of, they've gotten away from him doing that so much. It's just a 8G band now, not with Fred Armisen anymore. Like, it's kind of weird that they kind of got away from it. But Portlandia, my wife loves that show, and I'm not a huge fan, but I pick up an episode here and there while she's watching it, and it's pretty funny. I understand why people like it. So, I mean, he obviously can do the voice work. I don't know if he's done it before. I'm sure he's done it before.
Yeah.
But, I've never noticed anything that he's done. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this movie's going to be really good. I mean, it's going to be like 20%, but I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. All right. We'll go ahead and do Marvel and Georgia. And it's not just Marvel. So Georgia is on the brink of passing and what people are calling an anti-LGBT law, which is very similar to what Indiana went through a couple years ago, or was it last year? Which we were obviously familiar with living in Indiana. And Marvel, along with like 20th Century Fox and the Weinstein Company and a lot of other movie studios, are saying that they're going to pull out of filming in Georgia if this law passes. Marvel's filmed quite a bit there. They're currently filming Guardians of the Galaxy 2 there.
Yeah.
I believe that's where Captain America Civil War mostly filmed as well. So, you know, they're getting a lot of, a big economical boost from these movies filming there.
For sure.
Obviously, I think the smart move, not just based on that, but also on morals, is to not pass the law. But, it is a bit interesting. It's a bit sad that we're still dealing with stuff like this. I think North Carolina just passed a similar law as well. So
yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, it's 2016. Come on, guys.
I was super depressed whenever Indiana went through all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not necessarily, I feel like you're obviously a proud Hoosier because you went to IU and you've lived here you're pretty much your entire life, right?
Yeah.
I've moved around a lot, so I don't really call anywhere home. So I'm not necessarily super
fucking emo.
God damn it. I mean, you're right. That was a very emo thing for me to say. But anyways, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm proud to be from Indiana.
Yeah.
But it's kind of embarrassing.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, you said I went to IU. It's like the most liberal part of the state. And, you know, go 2 hours north and there's the politicians that are making those decisions. And so I know that this law isn't necessarily a representation of everyone in Georgia or everyone in North Carolina, but it is disappointing. And I'd be curious to see where Marvel picks up and takes their business.
You do see a lot of the big peach at the end of a lot of things. I mean, I know the Walking Dead films there as well. And it would be a big hit for them for sure.
All right. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah. All right. This last story is for you, my friend. Ark.
Yeah.
Survival Evolved, a game that you talked about a couple times on the podcast, may be pulled from sale. It turns out that somebody who works at the studio, his name is Jeremy Stieglitz, and Stieglitz. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Probably not.
Whenever he left, I guess Kotaku.
Sure.
He signed a contract that was like a no compete clause, or had a no compete clause, and he couldn't take people away from the studio to work at his studio and so on and so forth. And they feel like they are being competed against with this game, and they have noticed that people have left their studio to go work with him.
Yeah.
So, you know, that with this contract, they may be pulling the game from sale. I guess they'll have to go through trials and stuff, but that's kind of where we're on the brink of it, and which is kind of sad because it sounded like a pretty cool game.
Yeah, it's a bummer for sure. Like I said, I talked about this episode or this game a couple episodes ago. I mean, it's probably been 4 or 5 at this point. And I mentioned that it was still in the game preview stage and they were still tinkering with it. And there was a few things that were a little bit off, especially with the graphics. And there was definitely some stuff that they needed to fix. And so it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't sound like we're ever going to get that. And especially for me, I was kind of hoping, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen because this is more of a kind of a sandbox type of game where like Minecraft, where you can kind of do whatever you want and there's nothing to tell you what to do. But I was kind of hoping that maybe in the final game there might be some single player stuff that you could do. Yeah. But it doesn't sound like that was ever going to happen. But it's just kind of a bummer that we're probably never going to see the final project.
Yeah. What? I think about all the people that worked on this game. It's not just one guy, you know?
Yeah.
So tons of people poured their talent into this.
For sure.
And, you know, this one contract may dissolve the game completely. And it's just kind of depressing to think about all these people that sunk their time and their talent into it. And
yeah, but I mean, it's still, you still have the game preview and there's still so many people have played this game and have loved this game. I'm not sure if I would necessarily classify me as being one of the people that loved it, but I did enjoy it for a time, and I was looking forward to kind of seeing the final project. But I think I don't think their time has been wasted.
Yeah, I hope that something, I guess, comes out of it
for sure.
Good, but it doesn't sound promising. We'll keep you updated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, man. That's all I have for nerd news.
All right. So our main topic this week is, of course, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. We're going to review Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. This is a pretty big one for us. We're huge Batman fans. Not so much Superman, but Tyler's more of a DC guy than I am, for sure. Batman v Superman is about basically the political pressure against Superman is mounting, so Batman decides that he must face off against Superman until a new threat emerges. Tyler and I actually went and saw this on Thursday. Tyler and I and Tyler's side piece went and saw it on Thursday. And it wasn't actually as busy as I thought. I thought it was going to be like more like Star Wars, because I thought it was going to be nothing tracks like Star Wars tracked.
Oh, for sure.
I thought that it was gonna be a little bit more busy. I know that there was an article on IGN a while back that said that this had to make like 800 million just to break even because the budget just for filming was 400 million. And then of course you kind of double that with marketing, especially with this film that it was everywhere for the last couple of months. So it wasn't as busy as I thought it was going to be, but I mean, I think it's still tracking very, very well. This is a big film for Tyler. His first of our Rotten Tomatoes draft, and it's not going well.
I haven't looked since I saw it.
I trolled you a little bit on Instagram the other day.
It got more likes than I would have appreciated.
Yeah.
Same on Facebook. Like our Facebook posts get, 1 or 2 likes, and I think that one got like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah. And it's 30% right now. I checked earlier.
Is that what I've been scared
And I mean,
to look.
it's got like over 200 reviews. Of course, everybody that reviews anything on Rotten Tomatoes reviewed this film because it's so huge right now. So it's not going to move anywhere. Yeah. Like it could get another 50 reviews and they could all be positive and it might bump it up to like 32%. Yeah. But there's so many that are negative at this point that it's not going to really go. The needle's not going to move in either direction at this point. So you're starting off, not so great.
All right. Well, how many movies do we each have? 6?
7.
7.
So you have 6.
I got a lot of ground left to make
up. But Star Trek just had to go back for a reshoot.
Did they? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'm really I think that a lot of Jungle Book's getting a lot of good buzz, and I think Finding Dory helped me out quite a bit.
Oh yeah, Finding Dory is going to be high 90s. Like that movie's going to do really well.
I think that TMNT will bring you down to my level a little. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what we got to get to our review, but what did the first TMNT get on Rotten Tomatoes? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It was somewhere between 20 and 30.
Okay.
So it'll probably do what Batman v Superman did. I
could see it maybe being in the 40s. I think that it might get a little bit more love than the first one just because people know what to expect this time.
The only problem, I obviously, for the sake of our bet, and like I said, we'll get to the review here in a second. For the sake of our bet, I'm glad that this movie didn't do well, even though I wanted it to do well because I love Batman, but the whole Suicide Squad thing, I think, is going to be lumped. I have Suicide Squad. It's one of my other movies. I think it's going to be lumped in with this movie. And so I think the critics are already, as much as they wouldn't want to admit it. I think they're going to go in with that bias, especially the ones that hated Batman v Superman, because it happens within the same universe. It's already been spoiled that Batman is in Suicide Squad, at least somewhat. I mean, we've
sure
seen that.
I think it's just a scene, most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, so it's definitely. I think Suicide Squad is going to get lumped in, and I have my problems. I think that movie's not going to be good to begin with. So
was that the first time you had seen that new trailer? Whenever we saw that movie,
it was.
What'd you think of it?
I thought it was a little too heavy-handed, especially with some of the dialogue. The Harley Quinn, "Oh, we're bad guys. That's what we do." Come on, you could do better than that.
Maybe, I don't know if they can.
I think some of that dialogue was a little heavy-handed, but I mean, it's just a trailer.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get into it. Batman v Superman. We start off each review by just kind of giving our general overview. We call it broad strokes. So Tyler, broad strokes on Batman v Superman.
Before we get going, I do want to say that my thoughts on this movie are all over the place. Like, okay. I went to see it again last night.
The movie is all over the place.
I went to see it again last night to try to corral what I thought about it. And I don't know. My brain is just a mess because on one side of it, I really enjoyed it. And then on the other side of it, like everyone in the world is telling me to hate it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it like you brought up the Ghostbusters trailer.
Yeah.
So we both liked that trailer. And then the next episode, we're like, well, it turns out everybody else hated it. But you said something very correct when you were saying that. You're like, I'm not going to apologize for liking something. And this movie is by no means perfect, but I really did find enjoyment in it.
Okay.
And I hate that the critical reaction to it makes me feel like I have to apologize for that.
Yeah.
There's multiple times throughout the movie, especially in the third act, where I had a huge grin on my face because I felt like I was just watching a Frank Miller comic come to life.
Sure.
It definitely does have flaws.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not the flaws that I was expecting. There's a few things that I definitely would have changed, especially character-wise. But I enjoyed that this movie wasn't a generic superhero movie. And I enjoyed that it didn't fit the Marvel cookie cutter comic movie. I'm glad that they're not just trying to exactly copy the feel of the Marvel universe. I think that they have to stand on their own. I think that they're maybe relying a little bit too much on Zack Snyder for that. I'm excited.
Yeah, that was a poor choice.
I'm excited to see other filmmakers playing this in this universe they're creating, specifically David Ayer and Patty Jenkins, who's doing Wonder Woman.
Yep.
So I don't think that this is like a nail in the coffin or anything. I think that they did what they could to set up the universe, and I definitely did have a lot of fun with it, and I'm disappointed that I feel like I can't say that.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to make you apologize to me, but as expected, I did not enjoy this movie. I saw it again last night, like we mentioned before, because I wanted to like this movie, despite what you've been saying this entire time that I was going to hate it no matter what. I did not like how I felt after the first time we saw it. Like, we walked out, and we normally don't say anything.
Yeah.
But I was so angry that I kind of spoiled how I felt about this movie. I just kind of turned to you and I was like, you know what I feel. And I was so angry and disgusted by by this movie and how I felt about this movie. And I didn't like that the critics hated it, but I mean, they have their own bias. I think a lot of critics at this point are a little superhero fatigued.
I think they're a little Zack Snyder fatigued too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that anything his name's attached to isn't going to do exceptionally well.
But all the fanboys love this movie, from what I understand. Like, all my friends that enjoy comic books and whatever really enjoyed this movie and were like, well, it's not a Marvel movie, so why everybody hates it because it's not a Marvel movie. No, I didn't like it because I don't think it's a good movie. I didn't like it because I thought that this movie was going to be a lot of things. I thought it was going to be bloated, kind of overcrowded. There was going to be way too much exposition, and those things are there. But one thing that I didn't think it was going to be was boring. And I was bored during this movie. And I think a lot has to do with Snyder, because it was just really poorly paced. There was a lot of scenes that I was like, oh yeah, we're getting into it. It's going to be really awesome. And then he cuts to something completely out of nowhere that completely kills any momentum that the movie had. For example, during the final scene, I was grinning during the final scene when it's not a spoiler because they fucking put it in the goddamn trailer, which is stupid. They're fighting Doomsday. They finally come together, and the three of them are fighting Doomsday. And then Superman has to go off and save his bitch for no reason. Why does that have to be in there? It doesn't. It kills any moment. And there's more than that happens like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie where it's just like, okay, we're getting going. We're building it. I'm liking and then something happens and I'm just like, oh, come on, man. Like he Snydered this all up. And it was, I did not, there's things about this movie, like you said, that I did enjoy. It sucks that like he had to be a part of it. Like I think there's a foundation for a really good movie in this movie, and it didn't work. Like he kind of just fucked it all up. And this movie, there's no reason for this movie to be 2.5 hours. It could have easily been 1 hour and 45 minutes and been such a better movie. I
was watching it last night. I don't know that I agree. It could be 1 hour and 45 minutes, but I was watching it and I was like, you could shorten that up. Like even the beginning credits, like you spend 2 minutes watching Bruce ascend with the bats. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you could have cut that like by a minute, and just lots of little editing things here and there could have shortened that movie to like 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Yeah. And well, let's get right into the story, because that's a lot of my problems with the story is the pacing, and there's scenes that are in there that don't need to be in there. I actually disagree. I think the death of the Waynes was actually surprisingly effective, considering the fact that we've seen it so many times.
No, the death of the Waynes was like, that was necessary. That's always necessary when you introduce new Batman. I just specifically him falling down the well.
Yeah, that was weird. And then, like I said, the pacing was just all off, because they went from that, which was surprisingly effective, to the 10-minute Jeep commercial. Yeah. That really bothered me. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to enjoy this.
I was like, yeah, Batman drives a Jeep.
Yeah, I was wondering, I kind of looked over at you at one point. I thought you might wave to him when he drove by. Because you have that weird Jeep thing.
That's true.
And like, there's certain spots in this movie, like especially the second time that I watched it, that they could have cut 5 minutes here. They could have cut 10 minutes here. Like the underwater scene right after that Jeep commercial. There's where the kids they get the big thing of kryptonite. That scene does not need to be in the movie at all. They literally tell you later. They give you all the information that you need later when Bruce Wayne is talking to Alfred. He literally tells us what's happening, that scene happened. Well, then we don't need to see it. If you're going to tell it to us later, we don't need to see it.
I mean, if you didn't see that scene, though, wouldn't you have been like, where the fuck is this kryptonite? Somewhere
but it doesn't matter.
But like somewhere in the Indian Ocean, what the fuck does that mean? Would you not have thought that? Maybe instead you take
like out. I don't need to, that doesn't, for me, that doesn't add anything. Me actually seeing them mine for it, because the character that they hand it to, they bring back a little bit. You see him again, but he never gets explained like who he is or why you understand why he's there, but that scene does not need to be in there. Like if you're cutting things and you're cutting it down to the bare bones, like the actual things that need to be in this movie, that scene does not need to be in it. The same way that in Man of Steel, you don't need to see all the Russell Crowe stuff at the beginning, because they tell you all of that later on in the movie. I don't need to see both of those things. If you're going to do one, you don't need the other. That's my problem. If you're going to have the Indian Ocean stuff, you don't need Bruce Wayne telling Alfred. You just don't need, you just need one of those things.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you need Bruce Wayne telling Alfred.
I would prefer, because I like Bruce Wayne and Alfred. Well, yeah. I prefer to keep that and cut the Indian Ocean shit, because I don't need to see that.
The Alfred stuff happens at the end of the movie, and the Indian Ocean stuff happens at the beginning of the movie. Like, I feel like that sets us on the path to what this movie is. Like, the one thing that can stop Superman and, like, Lex Luthor's big hard on is his kryptonite. Like, you have to start with that.
But I don't think you do, because Lex Luthor earlier in the movie explains it to the senator. So I don't think you need to see that.
I don't think that's not the bone I'm going to pick with this movie. No,
I'm saying, but it happens a lot in this movie. There's certain scenes that if we were going to cut stuff, it needs to be cut. The Justice League stuff really bogs down this movie a lot.
Oh, I loved it.
Really?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
The dream sequence.
I didn't like the nightmare sequence where he's like in the desert. I thought that was weird and they put it in the trailer, and that whole scene is weird. But I love the Flashpoint stuff, and I loved Wonder Woman going through the files.
See, I didn't like that at all
because that sets up Justice League. That's
exactly
like, Lex Luthor. I don't want to spoil everything, but I mean, it sets up.
I think the trailer spoils enough.
Yeah, but I mean, some stuff happens in the last 10 minutes of the movie to set up why there's going to be a Justice League and why Batman's bought into a Justice League, and without mentioning and showing these characters, it doesn't work.
I think it works fine. Like, I think their conversation at the end works. I think we just disagree on what needs to be in a movie, because I think it's very similar to the kryptonite scene. Like, if you're going to have that conversation at the end, I don't need to see. I understand that people want to see these characters, but in the way that they did it, I think it slows the movie down. Like I said, I think it has a pacing problem. So in the middle of this fight, I don't want to see Wonder Woman clicking through all these files, like watching these YouTube videos. Like, I don't need to see that in the middle of it's Batman v Superman. I want to see that. That's what I've been waiting for. And then all of a sudden you slow it down by showing her clicking through all these files. I just didn't like that.
I don't know. It's kind of like just saying they're not alone. Like, I don't know. I think disagree. I think it's because you're not a fan of those characters.
Well, I mean, that has something to do with it, but I think they've teased it enough throughout the movie that you don't necessarily need to see it. It's cool that you do see it. I just think at that point in the movie, it just slows it down a little bit. I will say, I agree. I wish it would have happened early. Like, whenever Batman is going through, or Bruce Wayne is going through the files and sees the picture of Wonder Woman on the file, I wish you would have just seen it all then. Yeah. Instead of her watching it later on, like you said at the climax, maybe. I don't know if they were trying to say that's her motivation for, going to help. I doubt it, because she gets on a plane, but I would agree that could have been earlier in the movie. Yeah. And the dream sequence just, I don't know, it felt really forced, kind of, leading you into the big bad for the Justice League stuff.
I mean, that could have been 5 minutes cut out of the movie right there.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that was necessary. I mean, they're going to sell some more Funko Pops out of it. Well, they have Nightmare Dream Sequence Batman Pop figures, but besides that, it wasn't very necessary.
Oh, no, for sure.
Like, I think the Flashpoint thing did more than
I think you just put that you just put that in. You have him fall asleep, kind of similar to what they did with, not that he didn't fall asleep, but the similar to the Man Bat thing earlier in the like that was effectively scare. I mean, it was more of a jump scare, but it was pretty cool. And put him falling asleep and just the Flashpoint stuff, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The Doomsday stuff in the trailer is just ridiculous. That would have been such a cool moment.
Everybody would have jizzed their pants whenever he said, "You're Doomsday." Yeah. But instead, everybody knew it was coming. And it came across as more of a cheesy line. Like, that's what blew this movie, is that fucking trailer. Yeah. There's so many.
Well, I mean, there's other things wrong with this movie.
Like, don't even use Wonder Woman, like, in the promotional material. Like, let that the reveal of her blocking that shot from Doomsday to save Batman that's in the trailer, let that be the reveal of her. Like,
I don't know. I think
tease the Diana Prince stuff, but like, there's so many reveals they could have done in that movie that would have had people so excited to find. Like, if nobody had any idea Doomsday was in that movie, whenever that revelation came, like, it would have people would have gone crazy.
I think you just pick one or the other. Like, I think you put Wonder Woman in the trailer, or you put Doomsday in the trailer, but you don't put both of them in the trailer.
I don't know. It's hard to put Wonder Woman in it without Doomsday, though.
No, you can. You can literally just cut it so you don't see that. You don't see him. You see her fighting somebody, but you don't see who he's fighting. Well, like, I mean, you knew that there was going to be something, because there had to be something that brought them together. There had to be some common enemy that brought them together. So you knew there had to be somebody. I kind of assumed that it was going to be Doomsday, just because we've already done General Zod. Yeah. And there's only so many people that are strong enough to take on Superman anyways. So, I mean, there's the process of elimination. But I actually successfully avoided knowing that Doomsday was in that trailer. Every time I saw a movie and that trailer came on, closed my eyes, plugged up my ears. I knew that I knew that there was something in there that spoiled it. I was just like reading something about, and I guess it's my own fault. I shouldn't have read stuff about this movie, but going into, I think it was even Thursday morning. So I was so close to not having that spoiled for me. And somebody said something about Doomsday. I was like, that kind of reaffirmed what I thought was going to happen anyways,
Yeah.
but it would have just been really cool to see that, even though he looked super lame. Like I thought the CGI looked not great.
I wish
for $400 million, he needs to look better than that.
They teased like the spikes and the rocks coming out quite a bit. Like every time he would get hit, he would do that, but they needed to do it more.
Yeah.
Like if they did it more, he would have looked like he looked in the comics, and instead they just teased how he looks in the comics. And
he looked like something like that Sam Worthington Clash of the Titans. Like he looked like a monster from that movie.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, for $400 million, you need to have a better monster than that.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead, and that's all I have for the story, so I feel like we should move along to the performances, and I think that we should obviously start with the big three. I think there's Batman, Superman, and Lex Luthor. As much shit as Ben Affleck got, well, the casting department got for casting him as Bruce Wayne and Batman, I loved him. I thought he was a fantastic Batman. I thought that he was fantastic as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I loved the idea, and it's actually surprisingly subtle considering it was Zack Snyder. The fact that I kind of picked up on, especially on the second viewing, that he needed to be Batman. Like he didn't like being Bruce Wayne. He only wanted to be Batman, because there's a particular scene with him and Alfred where he's like trying to convince Alfred that he needs to be Batman. Like he needs to go and steal this thing. But you're already invited. And like Alfred was almost convincing him that the better play was to go as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And it just got, right after that scene, you see him staring, like you see the scene from the trailer, him just staring at the suit. Yeah. And I kind of got the feeling that he needs to be Batman. And I was surprised at how subtle it was in that movie. And maybe I'm just kind of projecting what I want onto this movie, but I really appreciate that. Henry Cavill, I brought this up when we reviewed Man from U.N.C.L.E., but he is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man, but he is not a good actor.
No, I agree. I kind of fought you on Man from U.N.C.L.E. because I didn't mind him in that movie, but he really didn't do anything in this movie.
No, any emotional scene that he is in this movie just looks like he has to take a shit. His face looks like he just took a shit. It's really bad. And then, of course, there's Jesse Eisenberg, which I think he's getting most of the backlash. We both love Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith always says that acting is about making a choice. And he certainly made a choice in this movie. Unfortunately, his choice was batshit crazy. I hated him in this movie.
You know who I think that he based his Lex Luthor on?
The Riddler from Batman.
No, Max Landis. So follow me here. Max Landis wrote American Ultra.
Okay.
They know each other.
Yep.
I don't know. I see a lot of Max Landis in that.
It's funny that you brought that up, because when they go to his party.
Yeah.
That what happens is not an exact adaptation, but it seemed like it was pulling a lot from one of the issues from American Alien. Obviously that can't be true because they came out at basically the same time. So he would have either had written it or they would have filmed it. So, I mean, it doesn't match up, but it's just kind of funny because that reminded me a lot of one of those issues. But no, he's really bad in this movie. It's so over the top.
Okay. So I think Ben Affleck was great as well. He was the epitome of Frank Miller's Batman.
For sure.
I would have liked to have seen more of a Arkham Knight type Batman in this movie. Maybe not quite as hardened as our Batman is in this movie, but he was great. I'm not going to, by no means am going to say he's the best Batman yet. Live action. I need to see him a few more times, but I think he definitely has the potential to be, especially if we get a solo Batman movie, to see more of him flexing those muscles and not literally just like
more CrossFit Batman,
the Batman muscles. Henry Cavill, I like I said, I agreed with you. I don't think he brings much to anything. Well, I didn't mind him in Man from U.N.C.L.E., but like I don't know if it was that he wasn't given a lot to do in this movie or if he just executed it poorly. It's probably a little bit of both. And then Lex Luthor, I didn't mind.
Really?
There's a few of his mannerisms make me cringe, especially
most of them made me
at
cringe.
the end when he's, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but he's talking about how the bell's been rung.
Yeah.
And it ding, 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 ding.
God damn, that was so horrible.
That made me cringe and a couple other things, but I don't.
The Cherry Jolly Rancher?
I thought that was funny.
So uncomfortable.
I hope that was supposed to be funny because that's how I thought that was hilarious. It was so weird. I don't know. I didn't mind him as Lex Luthor. I kind of like that they went with like a Mark Zuckerberg route instead of a Donald Trump route. The young hip billionaire instead of an old curmudgeoned one. So I don't mind it. I really don't. And I'm not just saying that to defend this movie. I honestly, like, just besides the few mannerisms he did that made me cringe, I didn't mind them going that route with the character.
Okay. Agree to disagree. I thought Gal Gadot, is that how you pronounce it?
I thought it was Godot, and then she was on Jimmy Kimmel, and she was saying it's like you actually pronounce the T as Godot.
Godot?
Or Godot,
okay.
something anyways, like that.
Either way, I thought she had great chemistry with Affleck. I thought she was really great. She was surprising, considering I don't really care that much about the character. I thought her reveal and just her with Bruce Wayne was great. I thought she did a really good job. Yes,
I was excited for the Wonder Woman movie because they were finally making it, but I'm even more excited now because she, honestly, like, as much as I love Batman, I think she stole the show in this movie.
For sure.
Like, her action scenes were probably the best. And I don't know, she was the epitome of the character, in my opinion, and she barely had anything to say. You know?
Yeah.
She did it without saying a lot. So imagine when she has Wonder Woman stories to work with. Like, I think,
for sure.
I think that's going to be a hit for DC, and I think it might be better critically received as well.
For sure. I loved her kind of Catwoman-esque relationship with Bruce Wayne. I loved that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that's all I have for performances, unless you have anybody else that you wanted to point out.
Not that I can think. Oh, yes, I do. Jeremy Irons. I love him as Alfred.
Yep.
I thought that he was a great Alfred. That's all.
Okay, cool. So moving right along, and this is for me the last bit that I want to talk about. I thought that we could mention the action.
Yes.
So Batman using guns. So that's a thing.
I don't understand, in all honesty, why Zack Snyder, or even, I don't know if it was the screenwriters, I don't know if it was Zack Snyder, why they would even make the decision to do something controversial like that.
Yeah.
With who in that room says, let's divide people on how they feel about what Batman does? Yeah. Like, that's just, like, there was going to be enough that people were going to argue about in this movie on whether it worked or not. Like, that's like the one thing that you don't do. I don't know. I don't know. It's like they're trolling us.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't get it. Like that scene, the Batman scene, his big fight scene with the Russians, like that scene was amazing, except for any gun use. Yeah. Like, besides that, like, it was like watching Batman in Arkham Knight or Arkham Origins or whatever game fall into a group of thugs
and just combo
combo and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope that a solo Batman movie does come and that Ben Affleck or somebody else directs it and gives us a street level Batman movie. For sure. Because that's the Batman I prefer. I don't like Batman standing away from Doomsday, not really able to do much. Yeah. I want to see him, on the street with Joker or Two-Face or whoever. I don't know. I just, the action in this movie, it was cool to a certain extent. It was cool to see these two characters go at it, but I feel like Snyder didn't learn his lesson in Man of Steel that people don't want to see them just get thrown in between through buildings. Like, that's not cool to me. And there was some of that, not as much as in Man of Steel, but there was still a lot of that. Well, they went out of their way like two different times to say the places that were abandoned. Yeah, but still, to be uber violent like that and uber destructive like that, that was one thing that kind of took me out of Man of Steel. I was pretty much done with that movie at that point anyways, but it just feels like they didn't learn their lesson. And there was a lot of throwing in between buildings. Even though the buildings were empty, it still wasn't
exciting for me.
Well, that's like the thing with Superman is that's like all you can do at this point with the character. He's indestructible, and so is Doomsday, and so you get thrown into brick walls and stuff. What'd you think about the Batman Superman climactic battle?
I liked it to a certain extent. I liked the fact that when Batman kind of disables him, I like the fact that he just whoops his ass because Batman knows how to fight.
Yes.
Batman's a man. He's had to learn how to fight. Superman's never had to learn how to fight. Superman's probably not very good at it because he's never needed to be good at it. Exactly. So I like the fact that once he was kind of on Batman's level, that Batman kicked his ass. Like, it made sense to me that he would not need to know how to fight because he's just stronger than anything else.
Yeah.
So that made sense to me. And of course we're not going to spoil anything. The thing that brought them together didn't hit for me at all. Like, Batman has to be to a certain point, and maybe it's my bias to Batman. For me, Batman, in order for him to kill somebody, which obviously in this particular Batman is not that big of a deal, but for me, he has to get to a certain point where that's the only option that he sees. And to get to that certain point, I feel like the reason why he stops isn't important enough.
I know. So,
and I'm purposely being vague, of course, because I don't want to spoil anything.
I had this note under story, and we just kind of
glossed over
it. But I have two main problems with this movie: Lex Luthor's motives and what brings them together, which is exactly what you're talking about. Because, like, I can kind of see what brings them together. I can kind of see why Batman's mind changes at a certain point, but it's not strong enough.
No, not at all.
It's not strong enough at all to, like, I don't know. That was kind of a weird moment.
The way he talks about him at the end of the movie doesn't make sense with how strongly he felt against him.
Yeah, like
20, 30, 40 minutes ago.
You know, there's the scene where he's telling Alfred, like, if there's even a 1% chance, so we have to take him out. And then, you know, by the end of the movie, he's like, saying that kind of stuff about him. So
that just didn't make sense. That didn't match up with the anger he felt earlier in the movie. So, I mean, I did appreciate some of this movie. I know that probably didn't come through on my review, but, I mean, obviously you liked it more than Man of Steel, right?
Yeah, by far.
You will own this, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I'm hoping that there's a sweet Steelbook eventually.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've already seen, and the thing that bothers me is I really wanted to like this because some of the merchandising looks really cool, but it wasn't for me.
Well, there's, like, I don't know, like, this happens every time we review any goddamn movie. Like, we just, like, obviously you had more negative thoughts about this movie than positive, and I think I do have more positive thoughts on this movie than negative, and anytime we review something, we dwell on the negative. I think that just shows our personality a little bit. But there's a lot of cool shit in this movie, like the armored Batman stuff. Like,
that is a really cool scene.
I love that, and I love some of the other Batman moments in it. I guess I should ask you before we go into star rating and wrap this up, just because we did focus on what we thought about this violent of a Batman. What'd you think about the branding?
I liked his little line saying, okay, well, we've been criminals. We're vigilantes. We've been criminals for a while. I appreciate that, especially considering the scene with the bat suit. They hint at Joker. So Batman's been through some shit. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense. I don't like it because it's not my Batman, but I can understand, like, it's Frank Miller Batman.
It seems like, so that the branding he does at the beginning of this movie is the way Alfred reacts. It's like the first time he's done it. Yeah. So it's like this movie transcends him into that Frank Miller Batman. So I want to see a Batman movie before Superman is around.
Yeah.
I want to see, I don't know. Well, I'm getting off topic, but
you just reminded me of something, and I know this is kind of, I should have let this go, but so Batman's been doing this for like 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
He clearly says that towards the end of the movie. The Superman thing happens like 18 months ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Why didn't Batman come as Batman to Metropolis to help out? I mean, he wouldn't have been able to do a whole lot, but I mean, that's kind of the point of the Batman, is that he's Batman. He's the only one that could help if there was anybody that could help.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I mean, he's dressed like he's at work, but any Batman I know has always had like a way to get the costume if need be. So I don't know. That's a good point.
I mean, I liked that. Well, other than the 10-minute Jeep commercial, I liked that scene. I like seeing Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it in that aspect. But for me, that it seems really nitpicky, and I understand that. But it just, the second time I was viewing this, I was like, wait a second. So he's been Batman this whole time. Why didn't he come back? He has the Batmobile, or he has the Bat plane. It's just, it bothered me.
I will say one more thing, that on the plus side, this is the best Batmobile yet, in my opinion.
Really? Better than the Tumbler.
Yeah, because it's a mixture of the Tumbler with like a classic Batmobile. They like put them together, and I appreciate that, because the Tumbler's awesome, but the Tumbler's not any Batmobile we've ever seen before.
That's why I liked it so much.
This is a combination of like what a practical Batmobile would actually be, like the Tumbler, with what it looks like in the comics, which is not like the Tumbler. So they like put it together, and it just worked for me.
Okay, cool. All right. So star rating, I'll let you go first because you like this movie a little bit more than I did.
You always let me go first. 3.5.
Wow.
I had flirted with a 4.
Really?
Yeah.
We are so far away.
I know, and the reviews, when we do these, we just dwell on the negative, and there's surprises.
I always say, and I think we've had this conversation before, I always say that 3 stars is my kind of low point as far as like, okay, that's what I if I give it 3 stars, I recommend it.
Okay.
So I don't feel like I can recommend this movie. So I gave it 2.5.
I would agree with you that I would, for future reference, if I give a movie a 3 or above, I'm recommending it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kept thinking that I gave Jurassic World, and I know we try not to do this, but I gave Jurassic World a 3. And that's kind of my loosest recommendation, because there's a lot of problems with that movie. I just had more fun watching Jurassic World than I did watching Batman v Superman.
Okay.
So I couldn't give it, I didn't feel like I could give it that same recommend, even though it's a really, really soft recommend. I just feel like I couldn't give it that. So that obviously we don't give it 3/4 stars. So, I had to give it 2.5.
All right.
Not that this movie is the success of this movie is really hinging on my recommendation. I mean, this is definitely gonna probably break the 1 billion mark. So,
well, they better hope so if they want to make any money off of it.
All right. So the last segment that we always do is a nerd favorite. We just like to bookend it with what we're into, and then nerd favorite, just kind of a nerdy question. We take turns asking each other, and it's Tyler's week. So what's nerd favorite this week?
So I figure we have to stay on the Batman side of things.
For sure.
You and I being huge Batman fans, I want to know who your favorite Batman villain is, but obviously if I were to ask that generic question, we both say Joker, so we have to omit Joker from the equation. So I guess what I'm asking is your second favorite Batman villain. I'll go first, give you time to kind of think about it. I've been thinking about this question all week, honestly, and Batman has the best rogues gallery out of any superhero, and I don't even know that that's debatable. Like it's an opinion.
Spider-Man up there, but
Spider-Man's definitely up there. But I think that Batman Far and Beyond has this strong villain group, and it's hard to pick your favorites because they all, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are so great. And I think that I have to go with Mr. Freeze, not because necessarily Mr. Freeze is like this great threat to Batman. It's because what's happened to him to get him to that point. Okay. Like I love the Mr. Freeze story. I love the Heart of Ice stuff from Batman the Animated Series. Just the fact that, he loses his wife basically to this disease and freezes her with hopes of saving her. And then that's his whole motivation. And that's the whole reason that he has any villainous side, is because he feels like he's doing what's right and what he has to do to save the woman he loves. And he's like this monster because of his experiments have gone wrong. And who knows if he had even saved his wife, if she would still, love him with the man he's becoming. Yeah. There's just so many angles that come at that story. And he's just, I would think, a strong character that hasn't been utilized correctly except for in the animated series. And I'd really like to see him tackled either, I don't know that I'd want to see another Batman movie devoted to him, like Batman and Robin fucked it up. But there's something there, and I would like to see it explored, maybe in an animated movie or something along those lines. But I think he's a stronger character that he gets credit for.
For sure, his origin story is very similar to Batman's origin story in a way. Batman obviously can't save his parents, but he becomes Batman to stop something like that happening from anybody else. And so it's a very similar origin story. So I appreciate that. I agree with you that his character hasn't been done justice. It's kind of a silly character. And so I think people kind of go the campy route with his character.
Oh, that's the easy way out.
I think if you ground it kind of like Nolan grounded his Batman, I think you have a stronger character and you kind of touch on the things that you talked about.
Yeah, for sure. So who's your second favorite? My
second favorite, and I don't want to say Mr. Bloom just because that's for sure a knee jerk and there's so many other great characters. So I'll stay away from that. Even though I do really like him a lot as a villain. Like I said, he kind of fills the void of the Joker. I will have to go with the Riddler just because Batman, they always say, is the world's greatest detective. And so Batman combines his intelligence with his strength. And I think very few of his villains kind of match him as far as being clever and being intelligent. Mr. Freeze maybe the one exception. I think the Riddler just kind of is just as smart as Bruce Wayne. So I appreciate that. I mean, obviously he's not as physical. He can't match Batman that way, but I appreciate the fact that he can kind of match with Bruce Wayne and Batman. So I think that provides some interesting storylines. I loved him in Zero Year. I thought that was a great Riddler story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's another character, though, that just hasn't reached his potential. Like, he's another. The thing with Batman's Rogue Gallery is it's easy to go cheesy.
Yeah.
I did not mean for that to rhyme. But, whenever Dark Knight was over and everybody was like, what are they going to do next? Like, the big thing everybody thought they were going to do was like a grounded Riddler where he's like a Zodiac killer. Yeah. And he's leaving like these clues and stuff. And I thought that would have been a really cool idea for a movie. And in retrospect, I'm glad that they went the route they went with Dark Knight Rises. But I still think that there's a cool Batman movie with a really dark Riddler that would be fun. So.
Yeah. Have you, I know you own it, but have you watched a lot of Batman 66?
No.
Have you even gotten to the Riddler in that show?
I mean, I've seen it before.
Okay.
Like I saw episodes on and off when I was a kid.
I actually really liked, it fits, because Batman 66 obviously is super campy. His Riddler is actually really good. I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember it very well because it's been since I was a kid when I saw it.
It's super over the top, but that whole show, it fits with that show.
Yeah, I want to see a Riddler that's not the Jim Carrey Riddler.
Yeah.
Even the Riddler in Arkham Knight, like I think that you could do better than that. Like I love that Riddler too, but there's more potential for the character there. I think
for sure,
0 Year probably is the closest to capturing what I want to see.
For sure. All right, so that's the end of episode. Was it 87 now? Are we at 87?
Yeah.
We're closing in on 100.
Closing in on our 101 Dalmatians review.
Yeah, for sure. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, which is also at The Nerds Podcast, like us on Google+, rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use, we're on it. Check us out on YouTube, The Nerds You're Looking For. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Definitely check out our website, The Nerds Podcast. Email us at thenerdsyou'relooking@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are The Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.